This dude. Bruh. Drew McIntyre seems to be firing on all cylinders as of late. This dude building toward 2 feuds simultaneously. He's building and selling to his title match at Mania with Sethington, where we believe he's going to win that championship. And then this dude, at the same time, is selling his feud months down the road with CM Punk, the dude that's most likely going to take the title from Drew McIntyre. This dude is pure gold right now, and he's doing most of this on his own time via his social doohickey machine. Everything that we're heaping praise upon The Rock Dwayne Johnson for doing as of late, right? The Rock getting done with his 2.5-hour workout, hopped up on all the protein imaginable, and he's cutting 10-minute promos before every single SmackDown, right? That's his time. But he wants to sell himself. He wants to sell the match. He wants to sell the event. The Rock is doing all he can on his time because nobody else is selling these matches. Roman Reigns is radio silent. Sethington Rollins says nothing of substance ever. Not for Drew, not for The Rock, nothing of relevance. And Cody Rhodes, what's he posting about? Video games, and I think his latest was a vodka sponsorship for WrestleMania. Something like that. Nothing to do with the tag match. Nothing to do with his match with Roman Reigns. You wouldn't even know that match is even happening. Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. But it is. It's scheduled for night 2. It's scheduled for the main event of main events. But again, that's overshadowed by everything at this point. At this point, Bayley versus Io is more reputable than Cody versus Roman Part 2. AJ Styles versus LA Knight is more prestigious than Cody and Roman at this point. Nobody's talking about Cody and Roman. It's an afterthought. But everybody else is radio silent or posting nothing of substance, not elevating this match or anything to do with it. The Rock is putting it all on his back. But there's one dude that's doing the same thing, albeit at a far lesser capacity because The Rock is an entity of his own. But Drew McIntyre deserves all the credit in the world because this dude has finally realized what it takes to go to that next level. Be what you want to be perceived as. Be that. What Bray Wyatt was good at. What MJF was good at. Right? An extension of you should be on the social. Nobody cares about the dinner that you're having or the selfie you took at the beach or at the local aquarium. Have fun. Be an extension of your character. Drew McIntyre continues to not just throw jabs at Punk and Rollins, but he's going for uppercuts and even KO punches, man. Just recently, I'm talking within the last few hours, you guys see what he shot over to CM Punk, right? He's working out, and he's talking about the recent video of CM Punk trying to train again. And Drew McIntyre says, that's adorable. Punk back in the gym with his baby weights. And he says, let's see how my triceps are doing, right? And he goes over and he just starts lifting just mad weight. Probably Punk has never seen this type of weight. And Drew McIntyre's he's just lifting this after drinking a little bit of his protein shake. But the real key here, the real zinger is what's playing in the background, right? He takes his remote, he presses play, and Cry Me a River from JT, Justin Timberlake, starts playing. Cry Me a River. Do you guys see the correlation? That was exactly what supposedly ignited the AEW brawl with Jack Perry and CM Punk, right? When the whole issue over glass being used and Punk not being for it and Perry saying, well, either way, I'm going to do it. And Punk being upset, Perry said, cry me a river. And boom, those words ignited the last of the fuel that needed to be added into this fire. After that, the combustible element saw CM Punk done with AEW. Cry me a river. Those words ignited the end for AEW and CM Punk. Cry Me a River. And it just so happens Drew McIntyre is pressing play on Cry Me a River. Come on, bro. It's those little details that are so magnificent when it's all said and done. and Seth Rollins. Nah, Drew did not forget about check this out. Listen to this. This is great. Drew McIntyre says, and I quote, "You get that moment, winning the title. Your responsibility is to lift up the title. I don't hate Seth Rollins. He's not CM Punk." In other words, I despise Punk, but I don't hate Seth Rollins. Drew says, "I just don't like the way he goes about things and his selfish attitude. He doesn't see it. He thinks he's a leader, but he's not. He's about himself. A true leader is about the roster and about democracy. And how can you lead the roster and the locker room if you're never in it? You're on your tour bus. You don't have your finger on the pulse." Guys, listen to that line again. I gotta say, that is badass. A true leader is about the roster and about democracy. How can you lead the roster and the locker room if you're never in it and you're on your tour bus? So he's accusing Seth Rollins, and this was a story that was just out a few days ago, how many wrestlers, too many, the story went on to say too many tour buses are in the parking lots now. All these wrestlers, right? It used to start with just like Randy Orton showing up with his tour bus, right? And then a few wrestlers afterwards. Randy Orton really set off the trend. But nowadays, I mean, Cody Rhodes is showing up with his tour bus. You got Sethington. Now, Sethington has the whole family dynamic. I get it. Sometimes the baby's got to be on board with Becky and he. But you have all these tour buses now. And usually everyone's just in it playing video games, or they don't come out till a couple hours before actual showtime where they have an appearance. So no wonder there's all that camaraderie in the locker room and all that kumbaya, right? And less friction and tension because nobody's actually around one another. So Drew says, how can you lead the roster and the locker room if you're never in it? You're on your tour bus. I just thought that line, man, you talk about pulling back the curtain and exposing the Wizard of Oz. Drew wasn't done either. Drew says, as it pertains to Seth Rollins, to me, he's done a great job, a phenomenal job. I don't think anybody could have made that title into what it is besides someone as talented as him. He got the title first, so it's his baby. He raised it. He's taken it to college and done such a good job. But it has to leave the small town and go to the big bad world and become who it's going to be to reach its full potential. I'm the one it needs to come to help reach its potential. I'll finally have the world title I can take around and defend it. It will come everywhere with me. It'll join me on social. It will be hating on people on social. It's going to have a hell of a journey by my side. People can say I'm a troll champion, but I'm not behind a keyboard. I'll get up and I'll beat you down. And if you're married, I'll take your girl too. If you're married, I'll take your girl too. Well, we know Seth has Becky. So I just think that's a phenomenal thought, right? Why is that not inserted into the story? Is it too late, right? There's only 2 Monday Night Raws left before WrestleMania. But I wish we were getting some of that, right? Drew trying to get into the dome piece of Sethington by going through the back door, literally and figuratively, right? The Becky Lynch route. You guys remember WrestleMania 8? I brought this up several times over the last month, I'd say. It was Ric Flair versus Macho Man Randy Savage. It was a double main event, WrestleMania 8. Savage was going for the championship. Ric Flair had it. And the storyline, forget that the match is badass and you have to see Ric Flair and Savage lock up, but it was Miss Elizabeth, right? Ric Flair was really getting into Savage's dome piece by creating this affair with Miss Elizabeth, that actually wasn't happening. But Macho Man in real life, he was very paranoid. He was very protective of Miss Elizabeth. So when Ric Flair and Mr. Perfect or Bobby Heenan, whoever it was, creating all this paranoia, Macho Man, it just got intensified. And the story was done so beautifully. It's like if this is the 3rd time we're seeing Drew versus Seth in the last several months, because we've already seen this, right? Pay-per-view a few months ago, January 1st on Monday Night Raw, you saw the same match, and now we're seeing it again at Mania. Why not turn up the intensity? Why not give us a badass storyline, right? As we progress towards the event, the situation should be heating up, not cooling off. And all we're seeing with Seth and Drew is they say words to each other, and that's it. Not even any physicality over the last few weeks. I think, Drew at the end of one of the shows did Claymore Seth. But the promo was just promo, and then Seth walks off. That's been like 2 weeks in a row. And let's be honest, even if you got physicality, is that fun? So they just beat each other. They brawl, right? Maybe there'll be a pull-apart brawl in the next 2 weeks. Everybody comes out, the referees, some wrestlers. How fun is that? We've seen it. First of all, we've seen these two face each other 165 times. But when I say twice in recent months, I mean literally recent months for that title twice already. This will be the third time. So why not get creative, right? You could have used Becky Lynch and she could have still done her Rhea Ripley feud, because let's look at that. There is no feud, right? There's no story with Rhea and Becky. There isn't. It's non-existent. Once in a while they cross paths. Once in a while Rhea comes to the ring and they say some words and then Becky walks off, or maybe Rhea walks off. Nothing's happening. So you would have just elevated that match while simultaneously elevating Drew and Seth. Becky should have been used in this scenario. I said the same thing about Brandy Rhodes. You have nothing with Roman and Cody. You have nothing this year, guys. You have nothing. This is even worse than the build for 39. But at least for 39, you truly had the finish his story, right? We were all hanging on finish the story. Now it's like a chore. Right? It's a chore now. We all just want this freaking story to be done. Just put it on we don't even care. It's become a problem. But at least you had that for 39. But you can't get Dustin Rhodes. He would have been perfect in this story. You can't get him. He's locked down with AEW. But Brandy Rhodes you could get. And with Paul Heyman, man, there's so much fun that could have been done. They decided not to do it last year. So you say this year, well, guys, we only have 2 weeks left before Mania. I doubt you're going to see Brand. I'm not saying, BC, no, we don't want Brand. I'm not saying Brandy's got to come back full-time or even part-time. I'm saying for this feud, Brandy and Paul Heyman, you could have done some fun stuff. Just help add to a story for Cody and Roman. So for Drew and Seth, I mean, just that last line, right? If you're married, I'll take your girl too. Well, you know that Seth not only has his girl, but she's in the business. She's in the company. So Drew, to fuck with Seth a little bit, he could absolutely start something up with Becky. Or at least create the illusion, right? Just tick off Sethington. Man, there's so much more creative you could have gone with Drew and Seth. But at least Drew is trying to sell this 24/7. Because you can't depend on Seth to elevate this feud. Not on his own time. If the red light isn't on, if they're not on camera, if they're not on TV, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, Sethington Rollins, none of these dudes want to sell anything. And that's why I heap so much praise on The Rock and Drew McIntyre right now, because those two dudes are putting WrestleMania on their back, or at least trying to. So Drew McIntyre, bro, cry me a river for CM Punk playing in the background at the gym. He's telling Rollins, you call yourself a leader. How can you lead from your tour bus? And if you're married, I'll take your girl too. You know what I mean? It's those little things, man. It's you keep poking and poking. And what if Drew can pull it off at Mania? I do believe he's going to. Seth is all banged up. He needs to take some time off. Drew with the championship's the way to go. CM Punk, when he comes back, you ignite that championship feud, Punk and Drew, because Drew is already setting that up badass as well. As far as if you're asking about Damian Priest, I don't know what you want me to say. Damian Priest is in no position to win a championship. Sorry, not sorry. I like Damian. They have not booked this dude to not just even win a championship. They haven't even booked him in a position to go for a title that I'd care about. If you told me Drew was taking on Seth for the title next week or next month or at a pay-per-view or at a house show, nobody would care. They have not booked Damian that way. So what's the play here? Is Damian just going to cash in, win the championship, and then we're all supposed to go, whoa, Damian's a star? Book him correctly first. That way, when he comes down with a briefcase, it'll be a massive pop. Genuine, right? Like, whoa, it's Damian and he's going to cash in. We're not just popping for the moment, because that's what happens, right? You pop because the briefcase is about to be cashed in, and then you realize, it was Damian cashing in. Is that really like, is our jaws really dropped? Is that really the headlines? Damian Priest having the briefcase is just so odd to me. Obviously, it's a botch. It's a Paul Levesque McMahon botch. It should have went to LA Knight, like the U.S. title should have went to LA Knight. None of it ever did. But now this guy is just wandering around with the briefcase, and most of us forget he even has it. And now we're in this position where it's like the third wheel. Like, he doesn't fit in anywhere. Drew wins the title. CM Punk comes back. That's the feud. If Cody wins the title, you set something up down the line. Hopefully a Cody and Rock match down the line before the movies start to pile up for The Rock. But Cody would have to do his own thing. If Roman keeps the title to go for Hogan's record, then Damian has no business being in that anyway. But I don't see where you're putting Damian Priest, and Paul Levesque McMahon doesn't have a clue. Look what he did to Austin Theory, cashing in the middle of a Monday Night Raw for the U.S. title, the same title he held three times before in recent months, and he failed. And then he gives an excuse that he would never beat Roman anyway, and then 4 months later he says, I want to enter the Royal Rumble because I want a chance at Roman Reigns. You just said you didn't. You had your shot. You said you didn't think you'd beat him, so you cashed in on a mid-card title and lost. Now all of a sudden you want to take on 29 dudes to get the same chance you already had. Levesque McMahon's not thinking this through. Again, if you're new to the channel, we dive into a lot of common sense and logic. And I know in 2024, common sense is not so common. But on this channel, we ignite it and we keep it alive for sure. Drew McIntyre, salute, bro. If I had a coffee flamed up right now, I'd absolutely do a more than justified salute. But after this recording, I have to go get a couple of coffees, actually. A Dunkin' Extra, and then I'm going to get a nice hazelnut latte. Maybe a pistachio from the fine folks at Starbucks. But a double shot for Drew McIntyre. Before we take off on this upload, AEW Dynamite's rating, it is in. They pulled an 800,000 flat, same as last week. So they're basically on par, 800,000. We expect that to maybe be moved by a few thousand, maybe up or down, but it's roughly 800 just like last week. So their average for 2024, I believe, is 816. That is below what I've been telling you guys, which is 825 to 850. That's a problem because 950 was their average for a long time. And now I said it's 850. Well, you just lost 100,000 of your niche audience because your niche top tier was 950. So now they go to 850. Now the problem is you're down to 8 already. Now, if you look at 2 years ago in the first 3 months of 2022, their average was just over the million mark. Last year, it was over the 900 mark. This year, over the 800 mark. So that tells you that the trajectory, if you follow the trend, next year at this time, they could be between 7 and 725, meaning they will have lost 250,000 fans of their niche audience. Once you start losing your niche, there's a bigger problem at hand. It's no longer just a point of you can't bring in casuals. So I'm sure some people will blame Mercedes Moné, but that's just not the case. Simply just not the truth. There's so many moving components. And that's why I said from the beginning, you can't just blame Edge or people like that who sign on and then the ratings go backwards. It's not Adam Copeland's fault. You know, there has to be a big plan at play and it has to be utilized correctly. And then you have to have everything else fall in place, man. It's like a big puzzle and the pieces need to go where they belong. So AEW has to figure that out. But Mercedes Moné is a clutch signing. And if AEW can get the house in order, Mercedes Moné can absolutely be, as TK calls, one of the faces of that company. But 800,000, obviously, that is not good. When you have an I Quit match for the championship like they had last night, TNT Championship, Mercedes Moné is speaking. It's rough. You know, you're coming off the Boston show. You're in Canada. It's rough. Back-to-back 800,000. So AEW has, but that's the trend that we're seeing. Monday Night Raw pulled in a 1.6. NXT, lowest viewership of the year at 569, I believe it was. So, when you say wrestling business is booming, hold on. You mean WWE financially is booming. The rest of the wrestling business, fans are like, no thanks, man. Better things to do. I'm going to shut the TV, or I'm going to change to something else. Or I'm going to go outside and play in traffic or sit on my thumb somewhere. But wrestling business is booming. I keep hearing that, but man, the numbers are going backwards drastically. Even The Rock, they just pulled a 2.4 on last week's Friday Night SmackDown. 2.4, you would be expecting a 2.5, 2.6 bare minimum if this was 6 months ago even. Right before Levesque McMahon took over fully for creative. Now you're seeing 2.4. Could you imagine if The Rock wasn't on this show? You'd be at a 2.0 possibly. Whew, a rough week in the ratings. We'll see if SmackDown can rebound. Cody and Roman Reigns face-to-face tomorrow night, of course, on this channel. We will be covering it all. We'll have a couple of uploads tomorrow for sure, and I would like to be live tomorrow in some capacity, maybe, for SmackDown. We'll see. Until next time, and there will be that next time. Top guys, we're out. BC, he's saying check you. Peace.